the Pumas kick the ball in the nets that's on the record. No, almost like, turn on your camera. Bam! So anyway, I told her I was going to make her have to sign dirty things, and I'm already deep into it now. So anybody who has a question, have at thee.
This is your 5th year of the talk. How does it feel now, 5 years into it? Who were you at the beginning? Who have you become over the course?
Interesting. Look at you with the deep questions. Wow, that's a really good question. Well, I'll tell you what. It doesn't feel like it's been 5 years. So it's only been 4 years for me. So this is going to be, I'm going into my 4th year on the show. And the show, from the very beginning, almost in a startling way, was a very easy place to go every day. You know, I didn't know that it was what I wanted to do, and so a big part of the process was being a guest host on the show, and what was so delightful from the first day was how comfortable I felt there, and how kind everybody was to me, and how welcome I felt. It was startling, actually, because, you know, you're coming onto a show, it's already a moving train, everybody has a dynamic they've already worked out, and then you're the new kid, and it just felt like home to me right away. So in a lot of ways, what's happened for all of us as a group is that feeling has just gelled and really become second nature. You know, some of the moments for me earlier in the show where I was a little tentative or worried about, you know, broaching my opinion or worried about disagreeing with one of my co-panelists, those have gone away because we've just built a trust with each other. That's almost second nature, and the show is very, very fun to do. And I say this a lot, and then I feel like it maybe would be taken the wrong way. It's a very easy show to do, which doesn't mean it's cake or like we're lackadaisical, but it's so well produced and well managed that we just get to show up and shine. And that's really what the show for me has been about. It's a fun part of my day. The stuff you see at the table is just a continuation of what we've been doing when the camera's off, only with fewer curse words. And we're a very salty bunch. People know that about. We're very naughty. I mean, we have Sharon Osbourne there. You have to keep up with her if she's a salty broad. And just the friendships have really solidified, and it just, I think, Julie's described it, we've all described this, but Julie described it, it's like this dance that we do, like being on a basketball team and you can do a no-look pass and you know that your guy's going to be there. That's where we are now, which is really, really wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah. Go ahead, honey. Her and then you.
Hi, Aisha, I'm Ianad, also from San Francisco, born and raised.
Yay! Repping that bay all day long.
What area are you from? And I'm also familiar with McAteer, and I'm curious if your classmates saw the show. Would they be shocked that this is you? What would they have said back then?
Oh, back then about me now. That's a good question. Well, I was born at the Kaiser on Masonic in Geary, and I made it out alive. And then I grew up in kind of in Hayes Valley a little bit, and then my family moved to the East Bay when I was like about 5 or 6, and I lived in Oakland until the 7th grade, and then moved back to the city. And then I went to the French American International School for middle school, then went to Aptos for a year, then went to Urban for a year, and then finished up at McAteer. And so through high school I lived in the Hayton and then again in Hayes Valley. It's Hayes Valley, you know, it was the Phil Mo when I was growing up, yeah. And with no R, just Phil Mo apostrophe. And I, you know, I loved growing up here. It was a really great experience for me. I was a really odd kid, and this is a good place to be an odd kid. It's interesting because by the time I got to McAteer, I went to the kind of, you know, they had a magnet there, and so I had to wait to get into the magnet, so I spent about 3 weeks at Lincoln, which was really challenging for me. It was like so different from what I had experienced previously, and I knew I wasn't going to stay, so I kind of never really integrated there. Was very much a loner. Got to Mac, spent a few weeks going into normal classes, and then met this really hot boy who was an actor, and then I went into acting class. So, by the way, if you ask any actor about why they're an actor and they don't say it was a girl or it was a boy, they're lying to you. They are a liar. It's always a girl or a boy. I don't care if they were 6. It was a cute girl in that acting class who got them in there. And the cute boy that I followed in there was Sam Rockwell. So, yes, so I have excellent taste in actors. And then I started acting. So, all of the people that I knew back then, they were all in performing arts. So in some ways, I think it feels intuitive to all of them. I'm still friends with Sam. Margaret Cho was also a classmate. We're still very friendly and have this like lovely kind of like secret club that we're in where we look at each other and remember when. But it's funny because I saw a girlfriend of mine who wasn't a performer years later, and she said, I always knew this is what you were going to do. And I said, I really did it. So if you could predict some stocks for me, that would be helpful. But she said, no, you were always really funny. And I never saw myself as funny as a kid. I was just trying to make friends because I've been this tall since I was like 7. And, you know, only black kid in my school for most of my life. My parents were into meditation. They were vegetarian. I was just being funny so that I did get beaten to a smear. So for me, it was like a defense mechanism. And also I felt like, well, if you're going to tease me, I'm going to make fun of myself faster and better than you ever can, right? It was just a lot of like prophylactic comedy I was doing. So yeah, my friends all, and then a couple of them didn't see it coming. And I think they would have been shocked. My 8th grade boyfriend walked around I hadn't seen him in 10 years, and all the people I know, the mutual friends, said he walked around with my Maxim picture in his pocket for a couple of years. And I was like, by the way, it didn't look like that when we were dating. So you can't claim it now. You can't claim 2002 Aisha from 1993 Aisha. Come on now. So anyway, I was always on this path, but you don't know that till you look back, do you? Yeah, hindsight is flirty. Go ahead.
Hi, Felicia Santos.
Hi.
Fellow meditator. Been working for 2 years, so
Oh, you've been talking to my mother. This is every conversation with are you meditating? You need to meditate. Every conversation with my mother.
there we go.
Yes.
So the ladies are so open about their lives, all of you are. What is off limits for Aisha?
Ooh. Well, unfortunately for my husband, probably nothing. You know, it's a really good question. I don't know. You know what I mean? I feel like everything is fair game given the right context. You know what I mean? I mean, there's stuff that you go through in your relationships that you don't want to share out of respect for your significant other. And unfortunately, again, for my husband, I'm a stand-up comic, so a lot of that stuff has already been processed and put out on stage, in other ways. But I would try never to say anything that would be hurtful to him. So that's probably what's off limits to me. Other than that, everybody else is just, fresh meat. My poor family. Yeah. And I mean, I feel like also for us, we really try to create a space at the table that's safe for all of us. And we try to make each other feel supported. We try to make sure that if somebody says something, that when they look at the rest of us, they're getting support and kindness back. It's the worst thing to do is to say something and everybody's like, we don't do that at our show. So sometimes you say stuff and they're like, oh, I shouldn't say that. But that's usually because you feel like you're with your girlfriends and you forget that you're on national TV. But yeah, and then, the most divulgent of all of us is Sharon Osbourne, and she's so brave that, a lot of times she says something, she takes the lead, and then you feel like, well, if she can share, her husband's infidelity or his relapse, then I can be braver about my own things. So, yeah. Yeah, sorry. Oh my God,
It's
I said,
okay.
oh, I'm such a jerk.
No, it's okay.
I'm an asshole. Sign that. Oh, that's cute.
I like that.
Like this? Not like that? Like this. Wow. Oh, because it's coming out. Okay. Hi.
No worries. Hi, Christy from Shades Magazine.
Hi.
You've been, you're on TV with The Talk. You have a successful podcast, Girl on Guy, and you're also a gamer.
Yeah.
And you do stand-up. How do you stay grounded?
Well, I don't know. So there's two answers to that question. And the one thing is first of all, we're both stipulating to the concept that I'm grounded. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. The people that are closest to me are not in the business. My husband is not in the entertainment business. I've been with him since I was 19. When we got together, I didn't have this life at all. Most of my closest friends are the people that I went to middle school with here at Aptos in the Bay. Those are still my closest friends. They could care less what I do for a living, and in fact, they tell me it all the time. They're not impressed. Not impressed at all. Most of my friends are men, and the way that men, I have a lot of girlfriends, but two of my closest friends are men. The way that men show affection is by telling you that they hate your guts. So, like if a guy's being really mean to you, it's like the boy who pulled your pigtails. You know what I mean? It's like he really likes me. So my friends are like, we don't give a shit about you and your fancy life. They could care less. So, and that's great. You know what I mean? I know they love me for who I am and not the things that I do. I also don't think that most of the trappings of the entertainment business are particularly meaningful. It's glamorous and fun, clothes and makeup. That stuff's not that important to me anyway, and maybe that's just the way that I was raised. I came from a working class family. My mom has an MFA, but my dad didn't make it past the 8th grade. And I was just raised to believe in hard work, and that's really the foundation of my whole worldview, is just to be industrious and to do meaningful things. So I probably have my parents to thank for that. But I'm not particularly impressed by fancy things, and I don't want a fancy life. I want to, hopefully make people laugh and be kind and make enough money to give it to charity. That's pretty much my priorities. And then have a lot of cocktails with my friends. I mean, I think people, a lot of times I travel alone, and I was just in Dublin, and I was there by myself, like, I was working, but I had a couple days off, and I was just walking around, and people were like, was that Aisha Tyler? That's how I do it, right? I'm like, I'm like a ninja. By the time you figure it out, you're like, that could have been Aisha Tyler, or a very masculine, fabulous drag queen. And then I'm gone, and they never knew who it was. So, and also the other way I stay grounded is I have so many jobs that I don't have a lot of time to like go to the club or ride around in a Bentley or go to the 40/40. You know what I mean? Like I don't have the room in my life to be fancy because I'm too busy working. And that comes from my dad too, who used to get up at 4 every day and come home after dark and regularly fall asleep in his dinner, you know, and he was just a really hard worker, and I just believe in hard work deeply. So, hi, and then there.
Oh, hi, so my name is Paul Pratt. I'm with the Huffington Post.
Paul.
And on the heels of your comment about people questioning whether it was Aisha Tyler or a fabulous drag queen, I was
Yes.
wondering how...
By the way, fabulous drag queen is much prettier than me, but go ahead.
I was wondering how you feel growing up in the Bay Area kind of prepared you for the kind of significant following you have within the LGBT community.
Well, you know what's so interesting about that is, like, I think if you grew up in the Bay Area, like, or at least for me, my relationship to that community was just, like, in my blood. I've always been close to that community. I've always had friends who were gay and lesbian. It's just been, like, a part of my life from the time I was very young. And I think it's when you leave that you realize that's not like that for everyone, or it is like that for everyone, but they're not acknowledging it. I mean, that's the truth of the matter. It's like the whole principle of coming out is that everybody knows someone's gay, and the minute everybody comes out, no one can be, you know, a bigot because someone they love is gay, you know. So I just always have had that, and I'm very proud of it. And my sister is gay. I have 2 nieces that are gay. I mean, there's just a part of my world. My best friend in New York is my New York gay husband. So it's just always been a big part of my life. It's been really gratifying for me personally to be able to turn some of my energy towards supporting the community. But that's just always, again, wasn't like, hey, maybe I'll support gay rights. It was just like, well, of course, like whatever I can do, I'll do. And it was really wonderful because one of my best friends when I was an undergraduate was the lawyer who spearheaded the marriage rights campaign in New York that was successful. And he's been incredibly effective. So I've done a lot of work with the Human Rights Committee, and that's just so important to me. I don't know. It's like I can't draw a parallel other than say it's never been any other way. And, you know, I'm in an interracial marriage, and the same arguments that people used against interracial marriage are the ones that they're using against gay marriage now, which is that it's going to undermine traditional marriage and that those don't work. And I mean, literally all the same arguments that they used to make about, you know, black people and white people not being able to fall in love are the ones that they're making against gay marriage. And so for me, it was a very intuitive thing for me in that particular case to fight for marriage equality. When my husband and I were dating, we were living in Oakland, we used to get like chased down the street. I mean, this was like 20 years ago. This was not in the 50s. And I never forget this, we couldn't hold hands in public. We would like sit separately on the bus. And we came into the city on Pride weekend. We were walking out of the Castro Street mini station, and some 7-foot-tall, gorgeous thing ran by in like a thong and platforms and a headdress, and nobody even blinked an eye. And I was like, well, ain't nobody gonna look at us over here. And we moved into San Francisco like 2 weeks later. You know, and then since then things have changed, but you know, recent events show that we're by no means living in in an equal society. So I just think if you believe in equality, you have to believe in equality for everybody. You know, but that's just the way I've always lived my life. Hi.
Hi. So you have a very diverse resume in terms of your podcast, Archer.
Greedy bastard.
Do you seek out that variation for your career, or does it just kind of naturally happen for you?
That's a very good question, sir. I do seek out that variation. Maybe not as kind of calculatedly as it might seem, but so there's 2 things. The first thing is that I've always wanted to do things that were frightening to me. I've always been, you know, I feel like people try to limit you externally a lot, tell you what you can and can't do, and they want to like put you in a lane and keep you in a box, and I always would rebel against that. Like I remember when I was in high school, I applied to a lot of colleges, and I got into Dartmouth, and my high school counselor said, you know, it was a very conservative, very like masculine, very Caucasian school when I went there. And he was like, don't go there because you're going to martyr your career. And I literally went home and enrolled like that day. I was like, don't you tell me what I can't do, you know. And I wanted to go a place that was alien and different. I wanted to have an experience that was maybe even a little frightening. And I really do pursue those things. I feel like it's important in your life to be terrified. I think that's when you tend to find out who you are. So I've always pursued things that were challenging. just on my own agenda to try to be a better, more interesting, more complex person. So anything I thought I was interested in doing, I've just done it. I've just always tried it. What's the worst that can happen? It doesn't go your way, but you tried it, you know. Separately, the entertainment business, again, tries to limit you externally constantly to tell you you're a dramatic actress, or you're a comedic actress, or you're just a TV actress, or you're just a film actress, or, you know, stay in your lane. Black comedians only do this kind of stuff. They can't do this kind of stuff. And early on in my career, you know, this is not an act. This is just who I am. And I realized very early on I was not going to be able to be anything different than this. But when I was a young comic, people were like, you need to be more like, you know, Monique, or more like Samora. You need to do Def Comedy Jam style comedy. And I was like, I just can't do it. It's just not who I am. And I would be lying, and the audience would know I was lying. And I've just got to wait until my audience finds me. I've just got to wait until the people out there that are like me, my tribe, discovers me. And I just stuck to my guns because I had no other choice. But in the entertainment business, you know, if you get stuck in a lane, things can diminish for you very quickly. So early on, separate from wanting to challenge myself, I wanted to create a career that was so multifaceted that no one else could shut it down. So, you know, I wanted to build a stool with so many legs that if I lost 5 legs, I still had 6 to stand on. Because what happens for a lot of actors is you have one gig, and when that gig goes away, you founder. And that's not that necessarily that artist's fault. It's just the nature of the business. So I've tried to create a life for myself that was diverse and challenging, both for my own personal satisfaction and so that I won't have to do a Sleep Number bed commercial. So, yep. Anybody else? Yes, hi.
You shared your secret of infertility on the last season. How has sharing that secret, and looking forward to sharing more, how has that helped you as a woman, as an actress and comedian?
Well, you know, I didn't know if I wanted to share that secret. You know, secrets are secrets for a reason. You know, they feel personal, and a lot of times you're not sharing enough because you don't want to hurt anybody, just because it feels too intimate. So it was freeing, for sure, to talk about it. It was really like a release. But the reason that I did it, and I said that a little bit on CBS this morning, was that I wanted other women who are, I know people who have been going through this in various stages, people who went through it, and, well, most of the people that I know that went through it spent hundreds of thousands of dollars of money they did not have and did not get pregnant. That is the reality of that IVF run. We always hear the story about the person that did it for 10 years and had a miracle baby, but that's not the typical story. The typical story is someone bankrupts themselves and never gets pregnant. And I feel like it creates a set of false expectations. You know, the number of people, I mean, I have friends that are in their 40s, they've worked their whole lives, and they can't afford a house. Like, they spent everything they had. It just seemed nuts to me. And I also think that there's right now in our culture, this intense devaluing of the choice of being a career woman, that you somehow aren't a woman if you don't have children, and that choosing career over family is not a valid choice. And I think it is a valid choice. And I think that women who choose that should be proud of it and should be able to say, this was the choice I made. I mean, I said it. I didn't want kids in my 20s and 30s. It wasn't like I was like, you know, dreaming about it. I didn't want it. I wanted a career. I wanted to have a robust professional life. I wanted to explore things. I didn't want kids. When I got around to thinking about it, I'd run out of road. And I didn't want to do that thing where you get jabbed with needles for 18 months or 2 years or 7 years. I just wasn't interested in it. And I wanted all the women out there who were saying either I don't want kids for personal reasons, or I don't want kids for physical reasons, or I don't want kids because I want to focus on my career, that is a valid choice for you to make as a woman, and you should never apologize for it. Never apologize for it. And I'm not ashamed about it. And I was sad in the moment when I talked about it on the show, because it's sad, you know, but I don't feel regret. Like, I wouldn't go back and change one thing about what I've done to this point. Men never have to make that choice. It's never an issue for men. They can make all the choices. They can have it every way. And I just was sick of, you know, everybody being like, oh, boo-hoo, that lady in a suit, so empty. It's a bunch of bullshit. So I really love my life, and I wanted to say I chose this for myself. I don't regret it. I wouldn't do it any other way. And if you're going through this, it's okay to stop, because I think a lot of people do it out of guilt. I got to do it. I got to keep going. I got to keep going. And they keep doing it, and they kill themselves over it. And so many women and men, so many men wrote in and said, I've gone through this with my wife or girlfriend. Thank you so much for saying it's okay to stop. We both felt guilty about it. We had pressure from our families. We had pressure from our friends. And now we can point to someone else and say, hey, we're not going to get on this crazy merry-go-round. We're going to do other things with our lives, you know. So I feel like it was it was really gratifying that it touched so many people so specifically. And I think we're moving forward in a really wonderful way culturally around the concept of motherhood, but we really haven't, not motherhood, parenthood. But we haven't gotten there yet, because I still think there's this expectation that you're only fulfilled if you have a biological child. And I just don't think that's true. And I think it devalues lots of families that don't have kids. It devalues families that didn't have biological kids. I think every family configuration, if it's right for you, it's the right one. And that was why I wanted to talk about it. Yeah, so it's been good for me. It's obviously really emotional when I talk about it because I just feel like, that lady that didn't have a kid, she walks by and everyone goes, eh. And then meanwhile, that bitch got a big old bank account. She was in Hawaii for 3 weeks. She got a 25-year-old boyfriend. She's fine. She ain't worried about you. She got a cat. She is doing just fine.
Thank you for sharing.
No problem. Anybody else? Yeah.
Well, since somebody's asking, I wanted to know a very fun role that you participated in recently was on Modern Family.
Oh, yeah, that was so neato.
Yeah, I was wondering if there was any plans for you to come back or if the door's open.
Ooh, dirt. Okay, so here's what I'll say. It was amazing and super fun, and I was so grateful to be asked to do that. And I'm really good friends with Jesse Tyler Ferguson, so it was amazing to get to work with him. I did see the guys behind the show on Emmy weekend, and they didn't say they were bringing back. They said, we really want to bring you back. So that's not a promise. By the way, the number of times that somebody said to me at a party with a drink in hand, we can't wait to have you back on the show. And I never was back on the show, literally. I'd be like a jillionaire. So, but it would be amazing to go back, and I would absolutely do it. And it's such an incredible show. I love that show. So I hope I get to do it again for sure. Yeah.
Aisha, this is such a great talk. It's a lot of work to maintain a daytime show. You have other obligations. What do you do to inform yourself so you stay relevant and you stay on top of your game?
Ooh, good question. Okay, so confession time. I have been in a self-enforced news blackout for most of the summer, and I'm not particularly proud of it, but the news was upsetting me so much. It was making me so angry. It was just wrecking my day. And I felt like I wasn't being creatively effective because I was depressed. So just in the interest of full disclosure, I have not watched the news for most of the summer. I've been trying to focus on art and being creative and generating things rather than taking things in. There's I'm not sure of the syndrome, but there's actually a term for the feeling that you have when you're watching the news and you feel powerless to change what you see, but you can't stop watching. It's like when Katrina was happening, we were all staring at the TV for days. I remember not sleeping for 3 days watching the Katrina coverage. And then I was donating money, but there was nothing else I could do. So I just sat on my couch getting more and more depressed, getting more and more angry. I mean, I'm sure you guys all felt this way about Ferguson. I'm depressed and I'm angry, but I can't go to Ferguson. What am I, you know what I mean? And so there's this powerlessness that kind of compounds itself when you watch these depressing stories. And so I made this kind of conscious choice over the summer not to consume any news. As a result, I have no idea who the president is right now or what day it is. I don't know where I am or what temperature it is outside. But during the season, I try to be really selective about what I watch. I'm not a news junkie. I was during the election because I was a surrogate and a volunteer. So I was a news junkie during the last election. I watched the news. I mean, CNN and MSNBC were on 24 hours a day at my house. Since then, I do look at HuffPo quite a bit. But I try to be really selective because also, I don't know, you guys know the internet is a black hole. You start clicking and clicking and clicking, and it's 4 in the morning, and you know your children are hungry, conceptually anyway. My children being my husband. I really try to be really selective. I'm contrary to what we talk about on the show. I actually most of the time listen to public radio, like an old Caucasian man. And then I read a little bit online, but when we do the show, every night we get a packet with the potential topics, and we get links to articles about them. So every night I do read. I'm an apple polisher. I always do my homework every day. I always read everything. And then if I'm curious, I'll dive a little deeper. But I don't know. There's a conflict between generating information and ingesting information, and sometimes they're not complementary. Do you know what I mean? I think if you work in the press, a big part of it is being informed. But I also think taking in everybody else's words all the time can sometimes stymie the words that you put out. And I think that trying to find that balance is something I'm always trying to calculate, you know. Hi.
Hi, Zenny Abrams, Zenny62 Media. You look fantastic. How do you stay in shape?
You're adorable. Well, thank you very much. So I am one of those insufferable people who does all of the things that are annoying and obnoxious. I literally, this is the most fatuous, like 19 words are going to come out of anybody's mouth. I am on the paleo diet, so I don't eat any carbohydrates. I do CrossFit. Please don't let me get started on CrossFit. You'll never get out of the room. Anybody who tells you CrossFit is a cult is right. What's that? Oh, yeah. So during the year, there's a CrossFit gym by the studio, and I do CrossFit in the mornings before I go to the talk. In the summer, I work out at home, and I have CrossFit equipment in my home gym. I'm really into it. I can't start. I won't stop. CrossFit's awesome. But I'm really lucky. Like, I was raised in a really health conscious house. My parents were vegetarians, so I was just raised eating healthy. I'm lucky in that way. And then my husband and I have we're transplanted San Franciscans. We have an organic garden in our backyard. We grow a lot of our own food. We eat organically. I try to sleep. I try to drink water, all the crap.